Angel.
Hello everyone and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Vors, coming to you from the nation's capital, where the Catholic Bishops' social justice arm, Catholic Charities, is about to come under intense congressional scrutiny. For a number of years now, as longtime followers of Church Militant will attest to, CM has been chasing down the story of the U.S. Bishops' Catholic Charities' undermining of national security by its role in the illegal immigration crisis, up to and including child sex trafficking. 2 years ago, Church Militant went to the Texas-Mexico border and spoke directly with U.S. patriots who pointed the finger squarely at the U.S. bishops as one of the largest provocateurs in this fiasco, owing to the billions, that's with a B, billions they get from D.C. to supposedly help with humanitarian relief. Nothing, according to those on the ground there, could be further from the truth.
Women and children are raped. The women are expected to be raped. They're given a morning after pill. Catholic Charities is involved in this process on both sides. And these women are raped, and if they fight, they're killed. And as a form of recognition for raping them, they take their underwear and their diapers and hang them up on trees. We've seen children that have been drugged with Dramamine and sold into trafficking. I've seen children's lingerie hanging up in American storefronts by a port of entry down in Arizona.
Catholic Charities is one of the, in my opinion, where I've seen, they're one of the largest facilitators of this human trafficking that's going on. They have individuals who are part of the human trafficking ring working and volunteering in their organizations. Here in McAllen, Texas, about 9 months ago, me and my team were here filming, and they have very specific markings, so you can tell who are involved in the human trafficking ring. They have like tattoos and things like that on them. And the Catholic Charities, just in, I do believe it was in 2019, they made $944 million. $944 million. And most of those are government contracts. People think, oh, they're NGOs, whatever. They get government contracts to help facilitate all of these young UACs coming across the border. They put them through their facility. They find foster homes for them. They're not being vetted. They give them new clothing. You'll see that on the aircraft. They'll get clothing, shoes, backpacks, all of that. And then they just funnel them out to whoever. So that's part of how they get away with funneling these children into human trafficking.
NGOs that are operating under the auspices of the church in so many ways, the bishops and other organizations are working against us here at the border. And we're trying to highlight that condition that the child sex trafficking that's taking place in America.
I know when I got down here to the border, I had various police officers, border agents, and many of them Catholics say stay away from Catholic Charities because they are encouraging the human trafficking and drug epidemic that we're seeing, which is obviously very anti-Christian, anti-America.
Some of the Lutheran services groups are involved, and Catholic Charities and others. They're actually working with jihadi groups inside the United States.
Well, that information has finally reached the halls of Congress here, where quite a few members are now demanding answers and an accounting from Catholic Charities on what exactly is going on with the billions they get in U.S. tax dollars. So, Church Militant has come directly to D.C. to sit down with various members and see what their inquiry is all about and what questions they want answering by the bishops and their appointees. One of the sharpest critics of all of this is Texas Congressman Lance Gooden, who is fed up with the open borders policy of the Biden administration, the Democrats, and their allies on the religious left, most especially Catholic Charities. Congressman, thank you very much for sitting down for us. You have a busy schedule, a little bit of chaos right now on the Hill.
Thanks for coming.
You have, I don't think spearheaded would be too much of an overstatement, spearheaded an effort to demand accountability of the multiple NGOs, non-government organizations, and their participation in taking billions of dollars of U.S. tax money, which have resulted in a massive destabilization of the border. One of those lead groups, if not the lead group, is Catholic Charities, of course, the subgroup of the U.S. bishops. What do you see here as the necessity for this kind of legislation?
Well, one of the things we have found is there's a lot of money that is unaccounted for. And one thing I've learned about Washington is when you start to ask uncomfortable questions, people either run and hide or they put up false information and try to misdirect you and those who are paying attention to you. And that's something I've seen since I started asking these questions. But a few years ago, right after Biden took office and we saw the borders really open up, we started getting calls and information into my office, and people were bringing things to our attention that I was unaware of. And so I took a trip to San Diego. It was the first stop of mine, and I encountered Catholic Charities, among others. They were encouraging in their actions this open border and this mass migration problem that we have. And while perhaps one could argue that their motives are pure in that they want to take care of anyone in need, as a United States citizen and a lawmaker, I've got a real problem with any activity that incentivizes bad activity. And mass migration is something this country just cannot afford right now, not only financially, but from a security perspective. And what Catholic Charities and Jewish Family Services and Lutherans and several others are doing down at the border is they are using our tax dollars to encourage mass migration. They are going down to the border. They are welcoming caravans, buses full of migrants. They are putting them up in hotels. They're sometimes giving them gift cards. They're giving them maps. They're giving them plane tickets. They're telling them, when you get to whatever city it is you want to go to, this is what you need to do to assimilate, get your children enrolled in schools, and stay. You don't have to show up to this court date. They are a part of the problem. And I started asking questions, and in asking questions, I found out that they're actually getting a lot of money, not just from parishioners at Catholic churches across this nation, but our U.S. tax dollars. And so as a member of Congress, it's my responsibility and my right to provide oversight for any organization receiving tax dollars. And so that's something that I've started to attempt to do. But what's interesting is that Catholic Charities, they don't respond to any of my requests for documents. They have called me a liar. Their spokespeople around the nation have said I was slandering them. And I have responded back with, if what I'm saying is not true, then send me the documents that I'm asking for. If you're receiving taxpayer funds and you're doing the work of the Lord, and I am so wrong, then give me what I'm asking for, and I'll say I'm sorry if the facts point in a different direction. But so far, we can't get any of the information we've asked for. We have learned that Catholic Charities, among others, but Catholic Charities is the greatest recipient, have received billions of dollars, billions with a B, of United States taxpayer funds. And it furthers the problem that we have now. We have people in this country, we have no idea where they've come from, but chances are Catholic Charities has taken a role in helping to process them and spread them out across the United States. And the fact that they say I'm lying and I'm uninformed and foolish, all the while they don't provide me with the oversight information that I have asked of them, tells me I'm onto something. And you know, the bishops back in Texas that I represent, they have reached out. They are helping push this message that what I'm saying is not true. But I know I'm onto something when Catholic Church members in my district come up to me and say, we disagree with the leadership of the church. We disagree with Catholic Charities using taxpayer funds or parish funds to help perpetuate this migrant crisis. But so my constituents are on board. One of my longtime sheriffs is a Catholic church leader in Kaufman County, one of the most populated counties in my district. And he is, in my mind, one of the go-to Catholics in my area. Longtime sheriff, beloved by everyone. He tells me, Lance, you're right. What you're saying is right. We do not want an open border. Catholics in your district do not want an open border. And so I'm not at war with the Catholic Church. They have managed to convince a few members of Congress to come up to me and say, Lance, stop attacking my church. That has never once happened. I love the Catholic Church. I got married in the Catholic Church. I suspect many don't know that, but I got married in the Catholic Church in Shreveport, Louisiana. My beef is not with the Catholics. My beef is with the leadership of any organization that receives taxpayer funds doesn't tell us how they're being spent, denies the fact that they are being spent in a way to further our immigration problem, and then goes and tells my constituents and colleagues that I'm slandering their good name. I believe that we need transparency. I believe we need sunlight on this process. And I believe at the end of the day, the American people from both sides of the aisle, if they really knew what was going on with this funding of this migrant crisis with our taxpayer dollars in the name of the Lord's work, the American people would be outraged. And that is a message I continue to shout and plan to as we continue with this Congress.
Do you think that you've reached a point, or an appropriations committee or whatever reached a point where it's like, okay, that's it, get up here. We're going to subpoena you. We want answers. It's not your money. It's money given to you that belongs to U.S. tax dollars, and we want accountability. We, the representatives, are just that, the representatives of the American people. Get your rear ends up here, sit in that chair, and go under oath.
I've had that conversation with Jim Jordan, who's chairman of House Judiciary, because it's not just an appropriations issue. I do believe it falls under judiciary as well, because not only are they receiving taxpayer funds, but they've inserted themselves into the migrant processing process. And Democrats are complicit in this as well. I've had a Democrat reach out to me and say, will you come and meet with them and see what they do? I know, first of all, the answer is yes, I'm happy to, but I know what they do. And what they do is they go to the border, they welcome everyone, and they say, here's some money, here's a hotel room, here's a bus ticket, a plane ticket, whatever, and go wherever you want to go. Now, the idea of someone starving on the streets of the United States of America is terrible to me. But the problem with that is we've got so many people here that need help. We've got veterans that are being kicked out of shelters, and instead they're seeing migrants go into these shelters in places like New York. We are not taking care of our own. We are opening up our borders, and Catholic Charities, among others, is playing a huge role in that. And I think we are to the point where it's time to have subpoenas. If Catholic Charities don't want to respond to my very reasonable letters asking for detailed accounting of where their funds are going, where their funds are coming from, as long as they're receiving taxpayer dollars, they should have no problem with scrutiny. And scrutiny comes with the accepting of taxpayer dollars. And so I do believe we are ready to take it to the next level. This speaker controversy here in Washington has slowed things down just a bit, but we are ready to get back to work. And I want the American people to have answers about where their taxpayer dollars are going. And I want the Catholic parishioners around the nation, in my district especially since I'm so involved, to know that the information they're getting from their leadership at the Catholic Conference of Bishops is not accurate. I'm not going to call them liars, but I will say they're spreading false information. They're damaging, I believe, a once great reputation that they had. And I think they should get back to the business of saving souls and get away from the business of using taxpayer funds to enrich an agenda that I believe has really strayed from their original purpose.
Oh, sure, absolutely. When you were speaking with Congressman Jordan, did he seem amenable to the idea of slapping subpoenas down?
He did. They want to start off, as I started off, send a letter, ask for this information, and then we'll take it to the next process. I'd like to have some of them come in and answer questions under oath about where these funds are going, how much they've received. There's a loan program where migrants are given money, and 25% of everything that they receive goes to Catholic Charities or to whatever group has agreed to manage the loan process. Mm-hmm. So right then and there, they're getting 25% of this loan program, which equates to hundreds of millions of dollars. They are incentivized to perpetuate the migrant crisis, because for every migrant that comes across the border, they're getting more money from the U.S. government to process them. Yeah. And so there's a perverse incentive in the sense that the Catholic Church is not going to really help us mitigate the problem. They're going to actually perpetuate it, because the more folks they encourage to come across, the more money they're getting in their coffers.
Yeah, they enrich themselves on that. Is there okay? So once the speaker controversy is over and all that, we're back to business. Do you have the sense that you might be getting, there's an election in a year. We're kind of halfway through this, congressional term. Are you concerned they're just sort of playing the long game here and running the clock out on you?
I think that they are hopeful that we will go away. I don't understand a scenario where the American people would be okay with this. I can't anticipate a scenario where Republicans will stop trying to fix the crisis at the border. The crisis at the border is so bad that even Democrats are starting to talk about it. Joe Biden allowed the border wall to resume, construction to resume a couple weeks ago. So Democrats know this is a losing issue for them. But I think the American people, once they realize, and I intend to ensure that they do realize where their money's going, that they're actually paying for this process to be continually ongoing and worsen. I think the American people will vote with their pocketbooks in addition to security. I know that if we retake the White House, that business as usual will not continue. I know that's probably something that Catholic Charities and other similar charities are worried about. But I, as a Republican and as someone who is dedicated to the Constitution and the security of my constituents and our great nation, I would feel very uncomfortable just sitting back and letting these lies continue, letting them continue to use our own dollars to perpetuate a crisis that I believe is destroying our nation.
Do you have a sense that, or maybe it's not the right way to ask the question, are you concerned that so many of the groups that Catholic Charities enlists in this network of migrant help also are involved in registering people to be Democratic voters?
And nothing surprises me at this point, but I believe that at the end of the day, if we do the right thing and we continue to work against what we believe are wrong things, that the voters will reward the right folks. And that's why I'm not worried about my standing in my district when I have members of the Catholic Church coming up to me saying, please keep doing what you're doing. We know they're putting pressure on you. We know they've refused to give you the things that you've asked for, so you must be onto something. And every time I get a request from the bishops, from Catholic Charities, whoever it is, my response is, give me the information I've asked, let me review it, and then let's sit down. But until I get the very simple requests that we have outlined, I've shared those letters with you, I've made them public, until we get that information, there's really no reason to sit down with them because they don't want to sit down in good faith. They want to sit down, have a PR campaigns type atmosphere where they make me the bad guy and they continue to spread and perpetuate this lie to the American people, not just to their parishioners, but to the American people, that what they're doing is good for their work saving souls and also for the American safety and security. It's outrageous, and I'm disappointed, to be honest. I'm really disappointed, but I'm not surprised.
On the question of American security, this has such a sort of deleterious effect on just completely undermining the republic. You bring in, 5 to 7 million in the last 3 years of the Biden administration so far. 5 to 7 million. Nobody really knows where most of these people are. They don't show up for court appearances. The whole process is so damaged, but beyond damaged. You've now got an immigration population, illegal immigrant population in the United States that's bigger than the number is bigger than 12 state populations. That simply cannot be good for a country.
I don't understand it. And the hypocrisy that I see from folks who say we should let everyone in is stunning to me. You've got Eric Adams, mayor of New York, sanctimoniously declaring a sanctuary city, and then at the same time saying we don't want any more, don't come to New York. You've got church leadership from the Catholic Church saying that the United States should open their borders, but I don't see any tents on the grounds of the Vatican. There's a great wall around Vatican City, and it works. I've been, it's a beautiful place. You don't just walk in, and you certainly don't camp out and ruin the place. Why should it be any different for our great nation? Why are outsiders telling us how we should secure our nation or how we should not? Who should come in? Who should stay? Why are we okay with American taxpayer dollars incentivizing the destruction of our nation? I'm not okay with it. My constituents are not okay with it. My Catholic constituents are not okay with it. and I don't plan to rest until this problem is fixed.
So last question then, Congressman, where to from here? Can we expect a full hearing, subpoenas? You know, the head of Catholic Charities just left and a new one is in, just as liberal, just as crazy, all the same credentials as everything else. You just say, okay, that's it, we're done. You know, we've given you every opportunity. We're going to schedule hearings. You're going to show up, or we'll find you, guilty of contempt of Congress.
Well, I think that's the next step, but I think another step is to cut off the funding. Mm-hmm. I rather than sit and talk about what we've done wrong, I'd like to just fix it right away and stop doing the wrong thing. We need to stop funding these loan programs. We need to stop giving money to charities to process and encourage illegal immigration. But at the same time, we need to hold those to account for dollars that they have received. And so I do anticipate we'll get to the point where we have subpoenas. I'd like to have a hearing. I want the American people to know how serious this problem is. It's not just an open border problem. It's an open border paid for by the taxpayer. And that's got to stop. That's just totally crazy. Once we get a speaker in office, I think you'll see more concrete steps taken toward that goal of achieving transparency and ensuring that the American people know exactly how serious this problem is. Catholic Charities and others like them, they know how bad it is. They don't want the American people to know.
Is there an appetite within the caucus to say, this is it, we're done? We're turning off the spigot.
There's an appetite within our conference among those who understand how great the problem is. We, unfortunately, I think some of my colleagues don't realize how bad it is, and they kind of feed in to some of the propaganda that the charities have put out there. But we are gaining ground, and I think the fact that the American people, specifically Catholics in my district, I can't tell you how many Catholics in my district have reached out to me because they've gotten pressure from an organization that they no longer have faith in.
Right. I lied. One more question. Do you have are you and members of the conference willing to hold up funding legislation if this is not stricken out?
I'm personally very willing. The members of Congress in my conference that are aware of how bad it is, they're certainly willing. And really, I'm sad to say that they're not even the worst offenders. There's so many bad actors receiving taxpayer funds that need to be removed from the process totally. And that's something I'm very hopeful with a new speaker that we can tackle. We've got a government shutdown pending on November 15th. Those are things that can be addressed, but we've got to have hearings, we've got to have subpoenas, enforce some accountability that Catholic Charities and others have so far refused to give us.
Excellent. Congressman, thank you very much
for your time.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Angel.